Hi guys, this is Zach from Watches on You, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Omega Seamaster 300. So this is the kind of vintage-inspired model in the Seamaster collection, harkening back to the original Seamaster 300 model. So this watch has a lot of different aspects when compared to the Omega Seamaster Professional, which is kind of the modern interpretation of a Seamaster. So this specifically is the new replacement for the previous one. There aren't a huge number of changes on this. You still have the standard faux patina going around the indexes, and the fonts and indexes are roughly the same as the original model, so you won't really notice a difference there. And again, my position on faux patina is I'm not a huge fan of it. I wish they made a version of this without faux patina, just because in my view, I think if you want to make a watch that's going to harken back to vintage models, you should make it how those would have looked when they were brand new. But that's just my personal view. I think it does look like, I think this watch does look very good, however, aside from that. So the main change on this is the actual change back to an aluminum bezel insert. So Omega first did this on the new James Bond Seamaster, and now they did it on this watch. Now, I'm not 100% sure why Omega did this. I think it has to do with just the original Seamaster 300 obviously had an aluminum bezel, so I think going back to that is just kind of what they wanted to do. And it also gives it a new matte effect, which I think I prefer the matte finish on this. It's more consistent with the vintage watch, and I think it just looks a bit nicer in my opinion, but I would prefer the ceramic simply because you don't have to worry about scratching it, as the aluminum can still scratch. Now, that does mean, though, with an aluminum bezel, you probably will be able to replace it for a much lower cost if it does get scratched. So that is something to consider. But I do wish they kept the ceramic, as I thought it did look very nice, and the main benefit would be offering the scratch resistant that is expected on most luxury dive watches today. Now, the bezel, however, it is a 120 click rotating bezel. It locks down very nicely. It feels extremely similar to the standard Omega Seamaster 300 Professional, if you know what that feels like. So it's a very clicky bezel, but it does the job very well. The finishing of the case is excellent. You have polishing on the tops of the lugs and then brushing on the side of the case. The bracelet, you have a brushed center link and polished outer links. So this watch does wear flashier than the standard Omega Seamaster Professional, which is kind of what this watch is meant to do, as this is lesser so of a true hardcore diving watch and more so of a kind of everyday wear watch, which this does still, however, have a 300-meter water resistance, so you can 100% dive with this watch if you want. It's just less oriented towards that and doesn't provide this ultra-high visibility that the professional model does. The movement on this is a master coaxial movement, which you can see through the exhibition case back. It is a 60-hour power reserve. It's very high magnetic resistance. You'll never have to worry about magnetizing this watch, which is a plus. It's pretty rare for that to happen, but I do like that Omega included that functionality in this movement, just so it's another thing you do not have to worry about. Now I'm going to go on to a wrist shot. So on the wrist, this is a 41mm case, which I think wears extremely nicely. I would say it wears maybe slightly smaller at like a 40, simply due to the fact that it has really long lugs that just make the case appear a bit smaller. But I have about a 7.5-inch wrist, so take that for reference, and I think this fits my wrist just perfect. Thickness, it's not the thinnest watch ever, but it's definitely not, I guess, overly thick. I would prefer thinner, for sure. It might hit your cuff, but it's not, for most wrists, it should be totally fine. The bracelet is very comfortable. It's very thin, which I think, and there's a lot of links, which helps it mold to the shape of your wrist. I haven't had any hair pulling or any problems with it. It has a nice taper down to the clasp, which I always like. And then the clasp itself is your standard push button, no safety, just clasp. And I wouldn't say I really worry about this ever coming undone. It seems to be very secure and hold very nicely. And you also do have the standard Omega push micro adjustment in the clasp as well, so you can just micro adjust this very easily by just pressing that button in the clasp. So this watch comes in at a price now of $6,500, which I would say that price is slightly high especially with the change to an aluminum bezel, just because I think that the price maybe should be adjusted to reflect that. However, I do think that this watch is finished exceptionally well, and compared to other watches in its price range, definitely matches their quality of finishing. The bracelet and case are finished tremendously well. I would put it probably on Rolex level of finishing. The case is finished great. So the price, I would say, I would like to see it a little lower simply because it does now have the aluminum bezel, but I can manage it because it is finished exceptionally well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you think about the change to the aluminum bezel. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.